this question goes to Dr. Sangoa. Some people feel that these vaccines have actually been rushed because they believe that vaccines take time to develop. So the question is, what are the safety measures or safety checks or phases that the vaccine has to go through before it can be authorized?
Right. Thank you. I'll try and avoid repetitions, and I know time is going. I'll just like to share maybe a couple of slides. I mean, there's so much information out there, and there's been so many presentations around COVID vaccination and all that. So that's made my job easier. And so the slides that my colleagues have been putting together, and I think it's on this, it's on the seminar today. So I'm going to steal from his slides. And that's from Professor Edward Konunga, who is my brother from Zimbabwe, and a colleague also. He's a consultant in public health. So if I have permission to share, then you end up, develop, either you recover, you die, or you get disability, or you develop your immune memory. So now that if you get the disease, so like COVID, you get that, but the antigen and the vaccine gives you that process. You have the immune response and you have immune memory. In terms of the stages of I won't go into what the vaccines are. Now, the race for vaccine, if I can get that, yes. That is why it's accelerated. That instead of taking the normal, and I think some of it had been shown in the video clip that Dr. Adeboye shared with us, and we go through all the different phases that we have put that on. Yeah, so we have the preclinical, which was in the clip about the development, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Then distribution and manufacturing and approval, which the top bit of this slide actually goes through years. But with the COVID vaccine, it's actually been accelerated. And all the phases have actually been done. And it's because we have a lot of stakeholders who have been involved with that. And then the funding and looking for volunteers for their research, which normally takes years. We had a readily available population to go through that. What is now key is the phase 4, which is the post-marketing monitoring of the effect of the vaccine, which is another way of displaying that. So all the different phases which a normal vaccine development goes through, which will have been by 2036, if you take this one, for example, has been done here within 1 year, but none of the phases has been skipped. And I think that's the main question, to say none of the phases has been skipped. So, this is another way of looking at, the development. It's been developed, mRNA vaccine, the method for years. And then because the genetic information was made available very quickly, like I said, no steps were skipped. Money and resources were available. The messenger RNA, which Dr. Adeboye described, the method, which is for the Pfizer, mostly for Pfizer and the Modena, faster approach to vaccine production. I talked about recruitment of participants, which was very quick, and nature of the disease, widespread. So actually, not long to see if the vaccine worked for the volunteers. And of course, a lot of companies began making the vaccines, and also got to recognize that there was an assurance that the market was there. Government had ordered even before the vaccines arrived. I mean, that's just a bit of some of the bits, and that's me taking it. I'm just trying to, if I can close this one. And just to show the benefits of the vaccine. This is from Israel, which is very stark. When we then had, and that is cases was going up, and when they got vaccines, a fall, both in the under 60, 40 to 59, and over 60. A fall in hospital admissions, severe hospitalization, a fall. After the first, going up by the second there. Now, if you come back to England, this is number of deaths of people who had a positive test result for COVID-19 in England. If you look at it, top over 80, that was end of January, February. Look at how it has dropped. Greatest benefit. So really, we are seeing, Dr. Isaiah said, I mean, it takes some time, but we have some immediate that we can actually see a big drop, and that in terms of even the number of infections, we're seeing the number of deaths, we're seeing lowest, even lower than the pre-release. That's why the government can feel that confident now about developing a roadmap to recovery. And this is like, and not everybody's been vaccinated yet. By the time we have everybody vaccinated, we would hopefully be seeing all the results. That's death rates falling more quickly in the over 80s. So really, I would just stop there, and hopefully that would generate questions. I don't want to spend time on presentations because, and once again, I recognize my colleagues and my brother from Zimbabwe, because most of those slides were stolen from him, apart from my picture when I got my vaccination. And then hopefully my glasses will be bigger, as big as this has. She knows I'm talking to her. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. We have learned a lot from that. Because of time, this is the time for us to be taking questions from the participants. So if there's anyone who would like to ask a question and for our medical expert to shed light onto it, I think some people are putting questions in the chat now.
And I think there's something.
If anybody wants to speak out, it's okay. If you want to, if you don't want to show your face, it's all right. But
I think this is an important topic, and I don't think we should run away quickly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We got a question by Olu Ogunbi. He said, hi, if I have already tested positive of COVID-19, would you suggest that I choose the protein vaccine over the other type? Thanks. That's a question. Let me quickly check the other one by Trudy, if the questions are related. What are the contents of this substance, and what is the definition of vaccine? Okay. Dr. Adeboye, I don't know if you will quickly like to, I know Dr. Adisa has made mention of, she has given us the definition of vaccine, but I think somebody wasn't around then. So if you could just quickly go around that and go over to the other question that says, if I have already tested positive of COVID-19, would you suggest I choose the protein vaccine over the other type?
Right. I'm glad for that state comments because it already says to me, you are planning to take the vaccine. So the question is really, which one should I take? That's my assumption, okay? Now, which means you understand that testing positive does not actually provide very long immunity. So there is a risk with, yes, you've tested positive, but it's best to boost your immunity by getting properly vaccinated. So that's what I'll say. The other part is whether it should be Pfizer, Modena, or whether it should be Johnson, Janssen. It's a different thing. One, you may not have that option because it depends on what GP is offering. It depends on what your surgery is offering. You're not going to have that option of whether it is this, it is that. In this country, what is mostly available is the Pfizer vaccine. That is what I had, okay? And the people at the moment who are given a different type of vaccine, at least what I know of T-side is mostly Pfizer. People who are being offered something different, there has to be a specific reason why they cannot receive the Pfizer vaccine. So severe allergies, some other reasons why they cannot be offered the Pfizer vaccine. So it's a little bit of a mute question because you can only be, except you move out of T-side, you can only receive what has been procured in T-side for people who live in T-side. Is there any advantage of one over the other, which is actually the question you're asking me for? No, both have been proven to produce very good immune levels. Is there any risk with the mRNA? No, I have had the mRNA. It doesn't change your DNA, it doesn't change your protein, it doesn't affect your fertility, it does not do any of those things people are speculative of. And yes, and if I may just add, there was also a question on the content. Somebody in Nigeria asked me exactly the same thing and sent me a long list of, it contains dead fetus, it contains embalming fluid, it contains this, it's all crazy, completely crazy. It's got some salt water, it's got some glycol, it's got a few things that helps to protect. If you remember the mRNA, it's so unstable, it has to be put in a little bag of glycol, protein, to make sure that it remains stable. There is no substance that you, either is a vaccine or you eat or whatever, that does not that is not contained in what is called a vehicle. Go and take any packet of paracetamol. It will tell you it's got a little bit of sucrose, it's got a little bit of starch. It's all those things put together that makes the old tablet. They are often inert and they're not going to cause any problem. They just help the active substance to get into you and be properly absorbed.
Main ingredients, preservatives and stabilizers, which is the bit that Dr. Adebo said in terms of those that's not stable. The active ingredients are those, the different bits that was described in the script, and Dr. Adebo had explained further. So really, that is a kind of a pictorial bit of what's in a vaccine. Okay?
Yeah.
Right, so I'll stop sharing.
Okay, do we have any question, John?
Yeah, I've got a few questions here. I think, for example, is there any chance of building the immune system without a vaccine? Do you think it can happen so that people can build their immune system without without having a vaccine? And another question is, if things go wrong in future, of course, you've told us that the steps were followed, everything looks okay, but of course, with hindsight, if things go wrong in future. What can we do? What are the safeguards that have been put there? And maybe final question is something to do with the hesitance. Why do you think there is that hesitance in Black community to have that vaccine? Because sometimes I feel we need to know what the reasons why, so that we can counter those reasons why people are not happy to go and take a vaccine.
Okay. I don't know if Dr. Adebola Adisa, or I don't know who would like to take this.
I think the people sharing this should actually say why they are hesitant. If people are hesitant, it will help us to say, why are you hesitant? I have a few responses to that, and I'm sure Dr. Adisa has, but it's actually very good if people will voice their concerns, and then we can talk around those concerns.
Yeah, so please, the participants on this platform, please, you can unmute and ask the question that you will want our medical experts to shed more light on.
Okay, I mean, while waiting for that, maybe in response to John Kabue's bit about the vaccine, if something go wrong, the vaccine, I mean, it's gone through, like I said, it went through all the stages, and that's the stages that vaccines, all other vaccines have gone through. We have a long record of vaccine has actually been, vaccine development and vaccination has actually been a big breakthrough in a lot of disease management, communicable diseases. When Dr. Adebo and Dr. Adisa were talking, they talked about the different types, from all our childhood immunizations, from birth, from BCG that we get against tuberculosis, through all the three MMR, polio, and all those bits, hepatitis, flu, and we have that. So there is a long history of that. And if the new vaccine, COVID, has gone through those phases, then there is no concern that this will be anything different. And that's why there's a phase 4 post-marketing, where there's a yellow card system that monitors the effects or side effects based on what is reported and fed back. And that is updated regularly. If you remember when Dr. Adebo was talking about, okay, if you have allergy against something, maybe you may not have Pfizer or whatever. Those are the kind of things that have been picked up either through research or through the performance of vaccines in the past. So there is a system in place to protect. If you remember when they started, I think it was the Oxford one, that one of the research participants reacted badly to it, that had to be hospitalized. Remember, it was suspended and was investigated before they started again. So if that is one of the reasons, that can say, okay, that's some degree of assurance. Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. There is a question here from Olu Gumbi. It's a bit funny anyway, because I said, now, if I can wait to get one shot, the first shot, I don't like needles. You are just like me. But if somebody like me, who doesn't like the sight of needles, not talk of allowing it to get into to touch my skin. If somebody like me can take it, so definitely I know that you can, because it took us up to 5 to 10 minutes before the needle can be injected, before the vaccine can be, before I can take it. But if I can do that, definitely you can be there as well. So I don't think there should be any problem. Just be the man that you are, and go for it. So there is another question here from Shadi. She said, once we take the vaccine, is it okay to mix freely, or should we still do social distancing? Maybe I should just go to Dr. Adibola Adisa. She's a GP, and you have worked with so many families. So what do you, how do you advise us on this?
Thank you very much, sir. Before I answer, I would like to just commend you on taking the vaccine, because part of the hesitancy is that, there's so much misinformation, and a lot of people believe in their community leaders, which you're one of. And you, by taking the vaccine, that can cut off so much hesitancy, because you've taken it. That's why people are putting pictures on I put my own photos on social media that I have taken it. I'm fine. We should all take this. So this is quite important. But in terms of mixing freely, or should we still do social distancing, this is very, very important. If we remember that analogy I gave, you can't say, because you're going out in the very cold snow, you can't decide to just put on your shoes and just go. Oh, I have my boots on and socks on. I don't need a coat. Everything must work together. Social distancing, mask, hand washing, shielding if we need to be shielding. All those things are so important in trying to prevent, the COVID-19 infection in the first place, spreading from one person to the other, between ourselves. And the vaccine is doing a different thing. It's trying to reduce if we were still exposed to that infection by any means, it tries to reduce how bad that infection is going to be. So they're kind of doing two different things, so to say, but it comes together. So all these things are so important. Everything must work together. So no, we can't stop, for now until, the world is declared COVID-19 free. We've got to keep doing what we can.
Could I just ask just one statement to that the COVID vaccination itself on its own does not prevent you totally from getting COVID. And that is the fear we're having now, at least with population and communities. People think once they have the vaccine, then they are free to go to do anything. No. What we have shown is it reduces the effect either on hospitalization, the severity, and mortality. Okay. But there's no guarantee that you can still not catch it, or there's no evidence that it stops you from transferring to others.
Even before the introduction of vaccine, we know that a lot of people have caught COVID-19 before the introduction of vaccine, and nothing has happened to them. So, and with the introduction of vaccine as well. So are you saying that we can still not be free? We can't go back to our normal lifestyles even after the vaccine, even if we contract the virus again?
Yes, if I get your question right, what you're saying is you may have the vaccine, then the community, we don't have the herd immunity. That is the immunity as a community. Herd is group of cows and also as a community until we attain that level of almost 99.5%.
That is
so we still have people who may be carrying the virus and they will not have symptoms. So we have some, and that's why some of us who've been done the testing, we have the asymptomatic, people who don't have symptoms, and those who have symptoms. For example, so they now go to different testing sites so they don't mix. So people will be walking normally and may have the virus but not have symptoms, and they will be transmitting it.
I actually have herd immunity written down here, because there's herd immunity locally and herd immunity internationally. Okay, so as Uncle Tokes has said, You need up to 80–90% of the community you live in to have been covered by vaccine or to be protected to reduce significantly the level of transmission. Now, that is great if the uptake in the UK covers that. But then what happens when you travel abroad? There's no country that is now isolated completely that do not have COVID. So you're not going to suddenly get on a plane and head for Nigeria, where nobody has been given any vaccine. The first person received some yesterday. So if you travel to Nigeria, if you go on the assumption that I've been immunized and you go into a community that is still transmitting heavily, you're just unduly exposing yourself. So we need to get the vaccine. We need to encourage our community to get the vaccine. That's the only way we are going to achieve herd immunity. Otherwise, it's a waste of time if 50–60% of us are vaccinated and the other 40–50% are not. It still means we'll still be passing it around amongst ourselves. So we need to encourage people. People need to get the vaccine, not only to protect themselves as individuals, but to protect their whole community.
Okay, somebody is asking a question. That this is from Kajetan. He said, sorry if I missed this at the beginning. What is the uptake in the BAME community on T side? And are we seeing the benefits yet? And then Dio says, what are your thoughts about vaccine passports? Another person asked the question, sorry, just 1 second, I can't remember the person's name. It's Barrister Chudi. He said, why did they ask for indemnity?
I think I can go to Dr. Shagoawa.
Right. Okay, thoughts on vaccine passports. As you know, the government is thinking about it, and it's just related to what Dr. Adeboye just said. We are part of a global community. If we are clean here, I mean, when we have air control, what about travels? That is why the government now has, is it how many countries now? 32, where when they come in, they have to isolate in hotels. That is why we're doing the South African variant, whether related to travel or not, the Brazilian, the Portuguese. So they are looking at that. And as usual in Britain, people are talking about rights. Vaccine passport is something that may come in, maybe because I'm public health, I will support it because we already have vaccine passport in the past for yellow fever, smallpox, cholera, because these are things that are going across boundaries. And where it has been, when it has been eradicated, they started going off. And I'm sure those of us from Africa will know that some of it is still being asked for. Which one was asked for me? Yellow fever when I went to Abidjan, Ivory Coast, February, just before the lockdown. I had to go and get. So we have the yellow, what's called the yellow certificate. And it might be something that may come up, but they're still looking at that. But my thought as public health physician will support that if we do not manage global vaccination, that is vaccination across all countries. And that's in the BAME community. We've just started collecting local data through the NHS England, and that will be, we can then have that on T side very shortly. I think we even had my colleagues in Middlesbrough had that, but I don't have the one for Stockton yet, but that will be coming up soon. It's a new variable that was introduced in part of the data collection from the vaccination. One thing we've got to recognize, at times when we make all this noise, we might be shooting ourselves in the foot. We saw a lot of morbidity, mortality in the BAME community. We have pictures of people who are died working on front line. But when it came to research, when I say we, I'm not trying to point fingers, we were encouraging our communities not to take part in research because of all the myths. And yet, from my experience, we suffered more. So occasionally, we've got to look at this and balance it. Now it's there, we have the opportunity, it's available free of charge for us in this country. We still have to be pushing and trying to raise the, to raise people's expectation, or at least raise the profile so that we can, actually take this opportunity and seize it. Our fellow countrymen in the other parts of the country, even at home where we come from, don't have enough. You cannot even trust the cold chain. That is why the Pfizer vaccine is a no-brainer in most of our developing countries because we don't have those facilities. Even in this country, it's only the hospitals, and that even influenced the prioritization of people getting because of the storage, and they were not allowed to go into practices. So that's my bit about that in terms of uptake. It's perceived to be low. It's perceived to be low even in healthcare. I mean, our colleagues who are working on the front line, some trusts are beginning to look at whether it will make it compulsory as part of some of the vaccines that is required to protect both the individual and the patient. And the question about indemnity, I'm not really very clear. Who's asking for indemnity? Is it the
Barrister
vaccine?
Chidi.
Pardon?
I think that was, I think something went wrong. You've answered that question before.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
If I could just add to that, are there good reasons why we should mistrust? Yes, there are. Okay, if we go back in history, what's were done to Black and ethnic communities. Yes, in the US, the syphilis experiment done amongst Black people. Even in the UK, well, they exposed, that wasn't just Black people. This was white people were exposed to nuclear weapons. So countries have misbehaved in past. Pharmaceutical companies, I can't remember which one specifically, went to the northern Nigeria pretending they were giving polio vaccine.
Pfizer.
It's Pfizer.
It was Pfizer. And they gave people crazy things that caused paralysis, and some people caused death. Shell has mismanaged a lot of our waterways, a lot of fishing in the Delta. So countries and nationalities and big companies have done atrocious things in the Black community, supported by our government, just a few dollars here and there, and they take their eyes away from people being killed in their communities. So there are lots of reasons. And then in the UK, you say when it comes to good things, we're the last on the queue. So how come suddenly we're the first being offered a vaccine? But I want to reassure people that I've just seen thalidomide there. Thalidomide is actually, it wasn't confined to just the Black community. It went across, it was pregnant women specifically, US, UK, whatever. More in the UK than actually the US. So yes, there are reasons to be hesitant. There are good reasons to be hesitant looking at history. But I am quite reassured by this process. It's gone through the right stages. There are enough checks. Bill Gates has, absolutely certain Bill Gates has no hand in whatever is going on. There's no G5 or anything being inserted into me. So there are enough checks in the process. I have confidence in the process.
Can I just add I think, Dr. Shangorawa and Dr. Adeboye they've said it all in terms when we're talking about, this herd immunity, in the spirit of, Ubuntu, Mr. Kabuye, I am because we are. If everyone is getting the same vaccine, white people, Asians, Black, no, it's not a special, type of vaccine kept for Black people or BAME. It is the same vaccine that everybody, who has got the vaccine so far has got. So, if something is going to affect the way I see it, look, like, also like Dr. Adeboye said, there are valid reasons to be worried, to be scared. All these things, then there's no smoke without fire. People have concocted them out of something, they feel. So, but we're all taking the same vaccine. So if something's going to happen to all of us, which I don't believe it would, then, why don't we just all take it? That's my own, the simplified way of looking at it. It's the same vaccine everybody's getting this time. It's not separate ones for different ethnicities. And if everybody doesn't take it, we are not all safe. That's the bottom line. So the more people who don't take it, the more it would affect even the so-called, everybody. We're all just going to be affected. So I think we got to, Mr. Tolashe, you've taken your vaccine, you've got to put your pictures, on social media. You wouldn't know, you're a respected leader, Mr. Kabuye, Dr. Ati. You are the people who are actually changing. Actually, in the last sort of 2 to 3 weeks, it is the community leaders, religious leaders, and people who are actually starting to influence Black people, BAME, ethnic minority, that actually we are taking it to. The Vatican has, sort of sanctioned this. Islamic World Body have sanctioned this in terms of content. So we've got to all take it. It's a no-brainer that until we all accept this vaccine, we're not safe. No one is safe. And we've got to think of the children. We've got to think of the older people. We've got to think of unwell people who would, bear the brunt of this if we don't, act. And we need to act fast.
Could people's refusal to take the vaccine cause problems of mutations?
Mutation in what?
In the virus, we keep having various variants, something like that.
Yes,
so if
is the nature of viruses to mutate. That is the nature of viruses, and that is the nature of a number of organisms to mutate, and that is to evade your immune system. I hope there's no Chinese person on this platform. They can always make a copy of a copy of a copy of anything and sell to you. And the same thing the virus does. It will make a copy of itself in a slightly different way so that it can evade your immune system. That's what it's trying to do. And if we take it back to even antibiotics, that is why we say if you've been given antibiotics to take for 5 days, please complete the dose. Complete the 5 days. Don't take 3 days and then, I feel better now, I'm not going to complete it. Or like we do in Nigeria or Africa, you go and eat in a rubbish place, and you know that you're going to have diarrhea. You take a few antibiotics after it. It's the wrong thing to do because the bugs get slightly used to low doses of the drugs, and that is why you develop antibiotic resistance. Okay, so that after a while, a drug you spent a lot of money to develop becomes useless because people are not taking the right dosage of the medication. The same thing happens with viruses. Viruses will always mutate. They will always try to change so that they can evade your immune system. But the fortunate thing so far is that the vaccines we have so far have been able to cover even these mutations we're getting. This is another reason why we should get vaccinated, because we do not know what is going to come, particularly in people who do not get vaccinated. The mutation that may come and makes it difficult for the current available vaccines to protect. So I will encourage people to get their vaccine.
Yeah.
Okay. If I can give you some statistics for the Pfizer and Modena vaccine trials in okay, in the US, we had okay, slightly different. We have 9.7% of blacks for the Moderna vaccine, 9.8 for Pfizer, and the US population on that with the black group is 12.3. Unlike if you look at the white majority population, where the proportion of their population is 73.6, they had 80% participating in the two trials. The Asian 4.4, 4.7, as against about 6% of the population. So, but in terms of, okay, they looked at breaking it down to Hispanic and non-Hispanic, about 20% to 80%. So it's always been, and this paper that reviewed it actually is always said historically, there's always been low vaccination rates, particularly amongst people of color and blacks.
In the community is the problem of wrong information. We call it myth on the social media. I think that needs to be sorted out. So I don't know, what are your advice on this issue? Because this is even the major problem that we are facing in our community when people don't get the right information, anything, you know, on social media, because everybody have access to social media. So everybody just thought they can just fly whatever they like on it. And this is really affecting a lot of people negatively. So what do you think we should do to combat this? Because this is really affecting this situation at this period, this issue at this period.
I may just comment. Just like I'm hoping, just like you will not, well, this is an assumption, just like you know what you expose yourself to, you'll not expose yourself to go and pick up pornographic materials to be reading and pollute your minds. You'll be selective in the things you do. It's the same thing you apply to social media. If you sit around a lot of social media, spend your time around a lot of social media, you will get corrupted. It's simple. Look for sources that are not corrupted. Well, unfortunately, most Black communities, again, will say, no, I can't trust the BBC. I can't trust government websites. They're doing this, they're doing that. But Dr. Adisa has shown us the vaccine being given to Blacks, to whites, to greens, to Martians is the same vaccine. So if you go to the government website, you will get the truth as to what is in the content, what is being given, and what is going on. But if you spend your time around social media, we got a good example of that on the Nike platform, on Donald Trump and all these things, and all sorts of obscure YouTube sites promoting all sorts of things and all sorts of crazy things. So if you are not mindful and you stray to all sorts of social media, you will get things that wants to fit your views and pollute you and corrupt you. So if you want the truth, stick to websites that gives you the truth. So read BBC, go to the government websites, go to public health, England and things like that. You will get the correct and the right truths. But if you go to some obscure YouTube channels, some obscure WhatsApp groups, you will get all sorts of corruptions.
If I could also add to that, I think that a couple of things, there is no vacuum in nature. So if if you know, our timelines, our social media, which is here to stay, especially for younger people, there's no way you can avoid social media. You know, it's basically like lifeline for some people, for quite a lot of people, really. So the information will come to us whether we like it. In fact, you know, family members are sending. I remember my dad used to send all this, which was forwarded to him as well. He would just forward it to us. But it's about, you know, re-emphasizing the correct information and flooding the timeline with correct information. So if people are sending information to you that are wrong, you send them information that are right. Keep flooding it. So on platforms that they're always, you know, sending meat, send the correct information. Well, I guess the thing is, how do you identify this correct information, which is what, you know, Dr. Adeboye has said. The government website, for me, it's where I refer to. The NHS website, all of my articles on social media, I reference it, most of it, because it's simplified language and it is true. There's no way the government is going to put incorrect information on its own NHS website. So it's a very good platform to go to. You know, people are doing a lot of awareness things. I've certainly been involved in a lot of, you know, doctors, you know, Nigerian doctors, things like that, doing, you know, African doctors, you know, ethnic minority doctors and health professionals doing all these videos. Send those ones to those people who are always sending you, you know, things are wrong. Just be forwarding it to them, you know, flood those timelines so that with time, incorrect information, well, I generally don't look at those information, but I kind of feel that it's reduced to when all this started a year ago. I think the myths have generally reduced. I believe so. I haven't seen a lot of them like last year. So we generally need to phase that out. I think the other thing I need to say, like Dr. Adeboye alluded to, I think quite a lot of ethnic minority don't watch, you know, things like BBC and government news. That's not a bad thing altogether, as long as whatever they're watching provides that information to them as well. So we should be taking that information to where people are watching. There's some people who will never watch, you know, English channels, whatever. Okay, that's not too bad, as long as they're getting that information in their language or wherever they want to listen to, like the video you did as well in many languages. That's so important. Everybody will find their language to either forward it to someone else, their grandparents, that people will watch those things, because people that look like them are the ones speaking to them and they can trust them a bit more. And I think that's the kind of assignment I'll hand over to the likes of Dr. Kaboye, Dr. Ati, and Mr. Tolashe, which you're already doing. You know, these are some of the things you can propose to the council to fund. You know, let people trust people who look like them more than people, you know, who don't look like them. And it's simple, it is true. So we can, you know, forward those information more and just flood the timelines. I think that's what, you know, I see might also help.
Yeah. If I can just add, is that from me?
No, continue, sir. Sorry.
No. Okay. I mean, information, this also stealing from my brothers. There are different types of information. You know, there's a false information that then goes on to a spectrum to intent to harm. So there is a misinformation, which is unintentional. Mm. There is the malinformation, which is deliberate publication of private information. And there is the disinformation, which is deliberately manipulated content. So we have those categories, and all these things, like my other colleagues have talked about in terms of social media. It flows, it moves very fast. But if one, especially where it pertains to health and things that might impact on people's health, my advice is still try and investigate. If there's anything mentioned about it like that, try and investigate the truth of it. If I borrow from my brother...
it is very, very important. And I think we are in this, probably in Middlesbrough or in Tayside, we've been lacking kind of community engagement personnel or a physical space where people can come and get messages, clear messages, to an extent that sometimes they always get, inaccurate messages from social media, from other places. But the fact that we've got Ubuntu, we've got NICO, we've got other organizations that are coming up, that are being supported by the council, I think it's very, very, very good that we can at least have a central point where we can really drum up the right messages. Of course, we can't pick on everything, but at least there is a certain point where we can pass on the right messages to our people. And I think it's very, very important that we encourage community engagement. We encourage community groups. We encourage community companies to form and be part of the community that they serve, people who look like them. It's very, very important that people listen, get those messages, get that information from a person who really has a lived experience of what they're talking about. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add to that.
Dr. Ati.
Slid into my hand now. It's just a quick one. She's asking if you're currently infected with the COVID and you are very, very ill, should you still go straight up and take the vaccine, or do you need to get well first before taking the vaccine?
You need to get well. Most vaccines will not be given to you when you are ill, because when you are ill, your immune system is down. You'll not be able to mount a good immune response to anything. That's why even when you have a fever, they will not vaccinate your child. That's why there are questions, if you're currently pregnant, maybe you shouldn't have the vaccine, things like that. If you're taking chemotherapy, this, that, all the things that affect your immune level, maybe not. So whoever it is needs to get well and almost back to being their normal self or usual self before the vaccine.
Thank you. Somebody just dropped a question, but I think you've actually touched on this when you mentioned Pfizer and so on, but let me ask anyways. He says, this is from Justin. He said, hello, thanks for your contributions. I'm not anti-COVID vaccine, but do we discount the fact that the apathy towards COVID vaccine noticed among Black community is rooted in health policies and clinical experiments that have targeted Black communities? In the past, yeah.
Yeah,
some of us know about Pfizer's case in Nigeria. Thanks.
Yeah, we've discussed it already. We agreed that part of the mistrust relates to all to past experiences.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending this discussion, this conversation. As a disclaimer, I would say nobody has paid us from the companies that make this vaccine. We just discussing issues, just making you, the viewer, the listeners, make a judgment on your own. We are not forcing you to do it, but we just giving you statistics and facts and all that. So nobody has paid us. Nobody has paid us. That's a disclaimer. But thank you, Dr. Tangwa. Thank you for your educative information, and it's always a pleasure to listen to you and be with you on such important calls. Of course, thank you, Dr. Adeboye, or can I say Dr. Kayode, whichever way you want, but thank you for telling us, for really giving us the informative insight in what happens, what the virus is all about, what we can do to prevent it, and also thank you, Dr. Adebola Adisa. It's always I always feel happy to listen to you. And thank you for the information you've given us. And yeah, Dr. Ati, co-host, it's always a pleasure to share a platform with you. And I'm really pleased to join this platform as well with Mr. Tolasi, or Mr. Tiff, as we normally call him. Thank you for putting these things together. And as always, Ubuntu Multicultural Center is a new thing, is a new concept, and with an idea to give information to support our community in a non-judgmental way. We don't force people to do things, but we give them information. We advise them to do of what to do in order to be good citizens of this country, in order to develop, in order to improve on their well-being. That's what we do, and that's what we will continue to do. And I think it's very, very good that you people are always there when we call on you to come and share your ideas, your information, your advice. So thank you, viewers, for listening and watching. And probably on this note, I would say, have a good night. See you soon.
Thank you.
Until another time, we come your way on community issues and concern, and probably definitely next month we'll be coming your way again. Until another time, thank you. Goodbye.